Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guest. Recently, I took a road trip to Sun Valley in order to visit a friend over her birthday weekend. Among the long laundry list of things that we decided to do was to take a drive to Galena and go skate skiing. After a bit of discussion, we thought it might be fun if we took a lesson, something that we hadn't done in years. We might learn a few tips, break a few bad habits, just have a good time. Enter John, our 20-something instructor, who quickly assessed our abilities and started offering feedback. For example, he said to me that I looked quite serious, was clearly focused, but he wanted to make sure that I was having a good time too. I tried to convince him that in fact this was my idea of fun, not to worry. A few minutes later, he came out with this doozy. He wanted to let me know that he really thought that things would fall into place for me if I just committed more. I stopped in the middle of what I thought was the most beautiful V1, looked back at him, and asked what he meant. Well, you seem to lack commitment. Kind of like you're afraid. I stared at this 20-something John like he was some sage oracle dressed in Nordic gear. I got a little bit nervous, but I dared to ask, "We are still talking about skiing, aren't we?" Later, I thought about what John said in the context of meeting someone for the first time. Without many facts, the things that we typically share when we introduce ourselves, he had pretty much nailed 3 key attributes about me in record time. Quite serious, clearly focused, afraid of commitment. Although I promise that last one really only applies to skiing. When we introduce ourselves to someone for the first time, we are an advertisement of our best qualities. We include a little spin, dangle a shiny object or two, in hopes that the audience will be distracted from what we perceive to be some of our weaker features. Given time, of course, we naturally reveal more and more about ourselves, whether we intend to or not. This is when the real knowing begins. It naturally begs the question, then, of whether or not the facts, the resume, are of any value. Should I spend any of my precious time here with you this morning rattling off stats like some crazed baseball fan during the World Series? It seems to me that I must. After all, it would be a bit off-putting if people introduce themselves for the first time by going, "Hi, my name's Dana. I am quite serious, clearly focused, and creative. It is so nice to meet you. What did you say your name was again?" It's the facts, after all, that provide the framework, the foundation upon which everything else can be placed. So here's my foundation. Born in Hawaii to a military family, one older sister who made it her childhood mission to try to convince me that I was adopted. She still mentions it on occasion. One 10-year-old niece who freely and unabashedly still believes in Santa Claus. Parents who are still together, but who live in fear, just a little bit, of what their adult children might do come next January when we're celebrating the 50th wedding anniversary. Recipient of what I like to call a patchwork diploma in mathematics, since I studied for 2 years at Florida State, 1 year at East Carolina, and my last year was a study abroad program in Scotland. To my credit, the 4 years were sequential. Like many in Park City, I'm an East Coast transplant. I've been here for 16 years by way of North Carolina. I've been in the software industry the whole time that I've been in Park City. No kids, no pets, no spouse. And the window dressing? Well, most of that will have to wait for another day. But for now, I'll let you know that I've crafted together something of a nomadic life. While maintaining my home base here in Park City, I've had the opportunity to do considerable living and working in Australia, Germany, and now Italy. From climbing Mount Kinabalu in Malaysia to hiking the Yellow Mountains in China and riding camels in the Australian outback, I am continuously in awe of the variety that the world has to offer. I love to learn about new cultures, experience new things, not only as a way to learn about others, but perhaps more importantly as a window to myself and my own culture. It turns an otherwise dualistic right and wrong world, black and white, on its ear in order to see how other cultures operate quite happily. And for the record, I will be back in Galena next year, hoping to see Nordic Oracle John and show him my fully committed V1. You see, I have something to prove now. That's just who I am.
Very nicely done, Dana. If we can all take a moment to write Dana a love note. While you're finishing up your love note, I'll expand on our theme of the day, knowing your audience. I think most of us do realize that it's key in public speaking to be able to make a connection with our audience, to be able to somehow empower them or persuade them or just get them to see a different viewpoint. Later on, Fred's going to be working on his 9th speech, which is all about persuading and empowering. And part of that is to know the audience, know what turns them on, know what pushes their buttons. In the software industry I work in, we call it knowing our users. And it's very much like knowing our audience. We have to understand what our users are trying to accomplish when they use our software. And the particular software that I work on is a very complex product. And it's not easy for our users to get in there and get what they need to get done in a short amount of time. So what we do is we actually do research on our users. We sit behind them and watch them use the software. We try to figure out where their pain points are, where we can streamline things and make it better and easier to use. And we develop these ideal users. We call them personas. And they're kind of like a specific type of user. Maybe it's the system administrator that has a specific role, and we give them a little bit of background. We can give them a name. We draw a caricature of them